All right, Kapil, thanks for joining us for Member Monday.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Kapil, the first question is always the easiest. What's your name and what's your organization's name?
Kapil Lakhotia, London Economic Development Corporation. Good thing I didn't have to look at my notes for this one.
It's good. What does the LEDC do?
So we're an organization that's contracted out by the City of London to conduct economic development on their behalf. So what this means is we operate on a purchase of services agreement with the city that creates the mandate for LEDC to attract new investments and jobs to the city, to help existing London companies grow and expand and scale up. Assist with workforce development, which means recruitment and retention of skilled talent, as well as engagement amongst the business community. All four of these pillars are done in key targeted industry sectors. Given our size and resources, we are not a one size fits all. So we operate in key industry sectors that are believed to be the drivers of London's economy. So these include manufacturing, food processing, technology, healthcare, and life sciences, as well as professional services. So it's always easier to explain what we don't do in these kind of things, right? So we don't do tourism, that there's a separate organization for that. We're not retail or service industry focused. There are many different organizations throughout London that help with those businesses, including Small Business Center, BIAs, Downtown London, and several more. So hospitality, tourism, accommodation services, entertainment, arts, cultural pieces. There are other organizations that look after those businesses. Our goals and mandate are very focused in these key drivers of London's economy, like I just mentioned. The traditional theory behind this is if these sectors are healthy and strong, they have the most ripple effect and spin-off economic benefit throughout our region, and that's how we operate.
One of the things I think I've heard probably from you guys was the if you can get a manufacturing job or a gaming programmer job, that those often create another five other jobs in the region. Is that correct?
Yeah, each of these industry sectors is different. You look at companies in the food and beverage processing area, such as Maple Leaf or Dr. Rutger, some of these larger ones that we've attracted to London over the last several years. Maple Leaf, for instance, is building the largest poultry processing facility in all of Canada in London. It's close to $1 billion investment that the company is making. It's certainly a very technically advanced operation, but it will have a very significant impact throughout the region. This includes suppliers of raw materials, equipment, logistics, processing, automation, all of these things. It includes, of course, the primary suppliers of, in this case, birds, but in general food processing environments, this would be raw materials, whether it's wheat, sugar, eggs, dairy, you name it. So the rural areas around London and southwestern Ontario really benefit from that food processing supply chain. That's just one specific example within food processing. You have similar examples within automotive, defense, aviation, building products, and other areas of advanced manufacturing, where you have subcomponent suppliers, you have systems integrators, you have logistics providers, a bunch of different things that results in that spin-off activity throughout the supply chain and continues on the momentum of building jobs in indirect and spin-off ways.
Awesome. And I think might be beneficial, what's the size of the LADC team? Because you guys, you have a very high, the visibility, I guess, or political visibility in the city when things go right or wrong with the economy. But you have a pretty, small team, I think, for the amount of work that's on your plate. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, that's very fair. We have a team of 10, and it's relatively small given the mandate, like you just mentioned. And even when we look at our peers across Canada who are doing similar things, it's a relatively small team, but we are nimble. We've got a good track record of investment attraction, local retention growth, some of these other things that I talked about earlier. And it's a model that's proven itself to be effective over the last 20 years that we've been in existence.
It's one of those things that why it's important to kind of define what you don't do, because economic development is such a broad category, but with a small team, That
You're
makes
quite right.
sense.
And it's up to each community to define what economic development interests they have and where to focus that energy. Some communities invest more in whether it's arts, tourism, different things, different attributes that are better fit with that community. If you ask, the same question in Niagara Falls, I'm sure they're much heavier invested in tourism around the falls. Of course, it's a
Yeah.
very obvious thing to say. Similarly, in other places across Canada, you'd have more work in oil and gas out west. Of course,
Mhm.
you'd have more emphasis in technology areas in Waterloo or Toronto with the financial services setup. In London, because of the diversity that we have in London's economy, it's a very balanced employment chart with education, with manufacturing, with healthcare, with professional services. These are very evenly balanced out areas of our economy, which gives us good diversity, but also ways to expand and build on these strengths.
Awesome. Um, how long has LEDC been around? And it's a nonprofit, correct? I think.
Yeah, correct. It was incorporated in 1998. Prior to that, this was a municipal function housed at City Hall. But in 98, the council of the day decided to create an arm's length organization that would conduct this kind of work outside City Hall in a more nimble and adaptable fashion that can change in light of changing market needs and can do its work confidentially in a very business friendly fashion, as well as be accountable for the resources that are provided by the municipality.
And the board is for LEDC. Are city staff on the board, or is it? I know it's like mostly private sector, but is it
Yeah,
totally arm's length, or?
so the board of directors are made up of individuals, senior leaders from the core industry sectors that we target. So to give you some examples, the presidents of both Western University and Fanshawe College are on the board. From a municipal standpoint, the mayor is on the board, as well as the city manager. We have representation from the Chamber of Commerce, senior leaders amongst advanced manufacturing, food and beverage processing, financial services, and so on. So the guidance and the responsibility of the board is to ensure that our mandate and work that we do on a day-to-day basis is aligned with the broader business goals of our community.
I think it's a lot of people think that LEDC is part of the city, but I think it's interesting that you have the separate governance piece. So cool.
Yeah, and it's easy to view that as a civic function because most economic development bodies across Canada are in fact municipal organizations. They are divisions within city halls. London was actually one of the unique models back in '98 to be able to create an organization like LEDC, which would operate outside City Hall. I can tell you more and more communities across Canada are going in this direction. They're just more efficiencies that can be had, and the more municipalities are looking to go that way. Constantly, I get inquiries from my peers across the board on understanding the LEDC model, looking at the bylaws, the board structure, the accountability, the relationship between the city, how that's managed, what do we do, like you said earlier, what do we not do, and how we measure the effectiveness, how we come up with the strategies. Things of that nature are very interesting to observe across Canada, and every city treats it differently based on, again, the resources that are being deployed and the goals.
Pretty cool. What's your background? How did you get involved with the LEDC?
So I'm an economist by background. I did my undergrad work here in London at Western University and then graduate school at the University of Waterloo. I taught economics for about 5 years here at the King's University College. And so I'm very heavily in the economics background from an academic standpoint. My road in with the economic development work was over one summer. I was involved with some consulting project with the city at that time, City of London, looking to create an industrial land development strategy. So this is going back in the early 2000s, 2001, I believe. the city needed economic modeling to look at, what kind of a return on investment the city would have for investing in purchasing and servicing industrial land inventories. Prior to 2001, I believe the city was not in the business of industrial land development. They were relying on private sector to do that. But there was a gap in the marketplace where the private sector just didn't have the right business reasons to be in industrial land development. It was just market dynamics weren't there between demand and supply. So the city found those gaps to be something that the municipality could actively serve. And since 2001, the industrial land development strategy has been very, very successful for the city, to the point that the city is still very actively involved in purchasing and servicing industrial land. Most of the success we've had in attracting new companies like Maple Leaf, Dr. Utker, Hanwha, you name it. That whole belt around the 401 and Veterans Memorial Parkway has been primarily on municipally owned and serviced industrial parks. And these industrial parks have created thousands and thousands of jobs across the board in auto parts manufacturing, food and beverage processing. There's R&D activities as well with Western and Fanshawe. And it's really created an impressive industrial corridor around that Veterans Memorial and 401 area. And sorry, I should have closed the loop and said, so that's how I got started in economic development, and I've been doing it ever since. Yeah, I don't know about the resolution on this camera, but a lot of gray hair these days suggests that I've been doing it for a while.
A little while, yeah. All right, next question was, you joined us on the RHA online piece, and I know you've LEDC has been in support of the RHA initiative since its kind of initial inception. But looking at specifically the RHA online, why do you think it's important to show up there and be part of that network? Or I guess my question is, is it important, and if so, why?
It's very important to have a community of peers that can talk about business issues, look for supports within a collegial environment. I think that's the glue that binds business communities together, no matter where you are, whether this is London or other parts of Ontario or Canada. This is an area LEDC puts a lot of emphasis on. That's why we organize these networking events. In fact, today at 1 o'clock with RH Accelerator, we're participating in the legal hackers piece, which is another attempt to connect the legal profession with technology professionals who can collide together for brainstorming ideas, for coming up with new technology platforms, for looking at the ways the legal community can better deploy technical solutions. There's no magic sauce to that. It's creating an ecosystem that's vibrant enough where people can come together and have these kind of collisions, call it that. And I know it's a buzzword that's used all the time, but till I find a better word, we'll stick with collisions. But industry events, networking, professional development opportunities, conferences, all of these things are different tactics to essentially achieve the same outcomes of these healthy collisions between the like-minded individuals who are trying to come up with better business outcomes. So the RH online community is a fantastic example of exactly that mandate. How do we link more of these folks together in a virtual online format, give them access to an easy technology where they can post their questions? I know I've responded to a few inquiries that I've seen on RH Online, where if through my networks, I know a solution exists or someone can help with a particular problem set, happy to post that within that community for the benefit of all members. And I think those type of interactions help bind the community together and result in more successes.
I agree with everything you said, so it's good. I actually sort of skipped a question because I thought maybe you had already answered it, but I'll give you the opportunity to maybe address it. Sometimes we talk about why an organization exists or the purpose of the organization. Do you know why LEDC exists in our community? Like, what's its underlying driving purpose?
Yeah, so LEDC exists to increase that job creation and investment attraction element to our business community. If we didn't exist to serve that function, we would be relying on just natural growth within London. There would be no activity proactively to attract new investments from outside London. And I want to make this absolutely clear. This is a very competitive business. There are a lot of communities across the board that are trying to attract new investments, whether it's from Europe, Asia, US, or other parts of Ontario and Canada. It's competitive. When I mention industrial land development, it's not like London is the only place in southwestern Ontario with industrial land. You'll find industrial land 10 minutes of a drive from London everywhere. So that in itself isn't unique. But what we try to do is that value proposition that London has built up has a lot of unique elements that includes infrastructure like industrial land, that includes workforce development capacity, R&D, the community supports like this RH online discussion that we just had. It's never just one thing in isolation. It's a combination of all of those things, marketing, business development functions, workforce development functions put together that come up with a compelling argument for a company that's looking to place an investment. I mean, look at companies like Maple Leaf. It's $1 billion investment to create the largest poultry processing facility in Canada. Of course, it's a competitive process. They just didn't land in London. They were looking at other communities across the board for many years. So this is why LEDC exists, to work through the motions, everything I just explained, to make sure we have unique value propositions, to make sure we target our energy and focus in the right areas to result in the biggest bang for buck for the community, have the most significant employment impact, and some of those other spin-off benefits that I mentioned earlier. I should probably condense that into a one-line why.
We'll work on it. One of the things I like to also ask for the lightning round questions, which are the quick sort of rapid fire ones. Is there anything I should have asked you about but didn't, that because we post this on for the network for people to kind of understand more about who's in the network? So is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, it's nothing jumps out. I guess just to round off the LEDC service offering, we like to say that there's no start or stop to what we do. We treat this as a relationship business. So companies that we work with to bring them to London, it's not transactional. We don't just wave goodbye when they're here and the project is announced, now good luck to you. We very much carry this relationship forward in perpetuity. So we'll be with them when they're looking to expand, when they're looking to recruit, whenever they have any, not just issues, because issues make it sound negative, whenever they have opportunities to grow, what pieces of the puzzle we can help solve, whether it's government grants and subsidy program, municipal approvals and permits, workforce recruitment and retention. We just did a virtual job fair last week that attracted over 2,400 job seekers. That was a first attempt at a virtual job fair. And through that mechanism, we noticed that a lot of external job seekers are able to tune into London's opportunities because it's virtual now. They don't have to physically come to a job fair. So that's opening new pathways into serving the growth needs of London companies. So when I say it's not a transaction, it's a relationship business, and LEDC is proud to be a trusted partner with a lot of these companies that we have helped bring and grow in London.
Awesome.
And sorry, that sounded like a commercial. But, I just wanted to make sure that that's rounded off.
No, I appreciate that. That was a really good thing. LEDC, I think, is one of those things that's hard to get your head around until you've worked with them or had the experience. So I think you did a good job kind of explaining some of the ins and outs of how that works.
Thank you.
Are you ready for the lightning round?
Go for it.
All right. Married or single?
Married.
Or status? Yeah. Kids?
2, soon to turn 8 and 5.
Awesome. Coke or Pepsi?
Neither.
Mars bars or Snickers?
Both. But slight preference for Mars bar, but a huge sweet tooth. So
yeah,
anything with chocolate.
Depends on the day for me, honestly. If somebody were to ask me, favorite movie.
That's a tough one. I don't have a favorite. You'll detect this pattern in most of your questions if there's any more favorites. I don't have strong favorites. I like movies. I enjoy various genres. the current contemporary COVID world, I found that, I always liked zombie movies and that kind of a genre. And it feels like sometimes I'm living in one right now.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I was a fan of The Walking Dead for
Yeah.
a long time. And, certainly there are things that you can relate to
There's
now.
elements. Yep.
Big Marvel fan, everything Marvel related, Avengers and the whole nine yards. So I have a lot of genres that I do enjoy, mainly action and comedy related. So, romantic movies are certainly out.
It's similar to LEDC's story, I guess. It's easier to say what you don't like than what you do.
Exactly.
Well, the bad news is the next two are also favorite questions. Favorite book?
Similar answer. Don't have one favorite one. The one I seem to go back to quite often is there are a few. The Subtle Art of Not Giving Fudge is one of them. There's a book called The Ideal Team Player with the author is Patrick Lencioni. That's a really good one, more from an organizational development standpoint. The one I just finished reading, which was a recommendation from the RH community, actually, Brian Foster recommended Linchpin, and that was an interesting, quick read. It was actually very, very quick and easy to digest read. And just started reading Upstream just a few days ago. So not a favorite, not one favorite book. I tend to read more business-focused books. I'm not into fiction at all. I really don't like it. So mainly just business-focused and things that fall into the organizational development realm that get my attention.
I've done similar with my reading career. I spend more time. I like the business books. I'm obviously living it every day. Makes a difference, I think.
Yeah, it's easier to apply some of those things. I find when you read these things, it's easier to put them in perspective. There are things you agree, you don't agree, or that light bulb moment. Where, aha, I didn't think
this is why that happened. Favorite game or video game?
I'm not a video gamer, but favorite game would be again probably not one favorite. I like golf and I like squash. And over COVID, I've been thinking hard about learning tennis.
Okay. Yeah, be a good one to pick up.
I know badminton and squash, so I think just from a general racket skill, could be okay. But
combine those two.
Something that I'm hoping to learn in a more focused way.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite vacation spot?
Sorry to bore you with the same response, but I don't have a favorite vacation spot either. It's again one of the, you're detecting a pattern here. It's always easier for me to tell you what I don't like. So it's,
least favorite vacation spot.
Yeah, right. So I'm not one to have a lot of beach vacations. I get bored sitting on beaches. That's just not me. So I tend to pick vacation spots based on history, based on cultural attributes. I'm a bit of a foodie, so I tend to pick places that have good food scenes as well. So all of that, having said all that, I tend to like Western European destinations. I haven't really gone very much in Eastern Europe, but places in France, England that have a lot of history and museums. Those type of things have been very interesting. I've had limited ability to travel in those areas, but when I do, I try to pick those areas.
Awesome. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
It is not, unfortunately. And I must say why. Yeah. It's primarily because kids are around and families around. Try not to have that kind of violence or language around.
I would agree with maybe not watching it as a family Christmas movie. All right, last question. You're banished to an island, can take only one thing, and I've qualified like it's a thing, not a people, because family is the easiest answer. And you can only take one thing with you. What is that one thing?
My cell phone, so I can call for help. And hope there's cell signal on that.
Hope there's signal. You might luck out these days. All right. Thanks, Kapil, for joining us and helping us understand a little bit more about what LEDC is doing in our community, and look forward to seeing you on the RHA Online.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was very enjoyable. Really appreciate everything you're doing here through these interviews, as well as the broader RH online community. I've had a lot of fun in being a part of the community, listening to all the interaction that's going on the chat boards and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it certainly has a lot of potential to grow into a big community of peers and supporters. So I wish you all the best. And thanks again for having me today.
Thanks, Kapil.